Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Live Free, Ride Free. I'm your host, Rupert Isaacson, New York Times bestselling author of The Horse Boy and The Long Ride Home. Before I jump in with today's guest, I want to say a huge thank you to you, our audience, for helping to make this happen. I have a request. If you like what we do here, please give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, tell a friend. It really, really helps us to make the progress. To find out about our certification courses, online video libraries, books, and other courses, please go to rupertisaacson.com. So now let's jump in. Welcome back. I've got David Lichman here. If you are somebody who has been involved around the sort of natural horsemanship world over the last few decades, you have almost certainly come across David Lichman, either by name or in person. His work with horses sort of precedes him, so I don't want to put words in his mouth. Let's just say he's helped blaze the trail for looking at how we work, all of us as horse people, in a more compassionate, more cooperative way. And a lot of things that we take for granted now, I think, in the horse world, were things you couldn't take for granted back when David was getting going. And we owe a sort of bit of a debt of gratitude to people like him for having sort of shifted the paradigm. So I'm going to let David tell us about what he does and how he's done it. So seatbelts on. This is going to be a good ride. David, thank you for coming on the show, and tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, I'm a greater admirer of you.
Well, that's kind.
And when I read your book, I was just absolutely blown away because I'd had experiences with autistic kids in equine therapy at the barn where I was working. Every Thursday or something, they would do something, and I saw this kid who was non-communicative, and they put him on the back of a horse, and immediately he started to look around, and they would toss him a ball and he could catch it. And they got him doing stuff like picking out the horse's feet and doing stuff with the horse. And they reported back after a couple of weeks, if somebody came to their house, he would grab a screwdriver and pick up their feet and pick up the...
Really?
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So reading your book, I admit I'm not much of a reader. My wife reads like the book a week, and my sister used to read a book a day, but I'm not much of a reader. But I read your book, and I was really, really impressed, not only with the content, but with the imagery. The way that you described the feelings around what was going on was really, really moving to me. And when I saw the movie that you made after that, I realized that, you don't get all that behind the scenes thinking that you put it in the book because you just say, here's what was happening. But you don't, in the movie, you just see what's happening. You don't get the thoughts inside. So I missed that. But what I didn't realize was how intense the screaming and the, just the emotions going on, that came through much clearer when you could actually hear it and see it.
We had to suffer along with us. Yes.
Yeah. So the and the brown alerts, and I mean, the whole thing for me, the combination of the two was eye-opening experience. And then, of course, years later, having met Rowan was remarkable. Just remarkable. He must be in his 20s now.
He is 25 now. Yeah, and he's doing great. He spends his time between Texas and Europe. This is sort of how he's doing. He sold his house last year. He has his own car. He has a couple of volunteer jobs that he does. He helps me a lot with trainings, explaining autism from the inside, really, and helping guide parents in how to approach their kids and what it's like to go from that kind of, he describes it as a fog, this nonverbal fog, into this greater clarity of cognition and how this can play out, how this can happen. So he's very articulate this way. And he still rides, so whenever he's with me, I've got a horse for him, and he gets up and he rides. So it's, when I look at him, there was this day, I remember when he was at his most severe, and I had this really irrational thought, but I had this picture of coming to an airport and being picked up by this handsome young man handsome, confident young man, getting in his car and sort of driving off, and that being my son. And I had this vision clear as day when he was at the height of his, most severe autism. And I remember thinking, that is so unrealistic, but I want to go in that direction. Well, in about 2021, I flew into Austin, Texas, and Rowan is there, and he picks me up in his car, and we walk out to the car park where he's parked, and he's carrying my bag, and he throws my bag in the boot, and he hops in the driver's seat, and I hop in the passenger seat, and I realized, oh my God, it happened. It happened. Wow. I remember I'd forgotten that vision that I had. So it made me realize, yes, you must always hold on to those visions. And so that's where he's at. And it's been quite a long road, obviously. But yeah. So for the viewers and the listeners to this, because this will be on YouTube as well as on the sort of podcast platforms, David Lichman very, very kindly came and did a fundraiser clinic and demo for us back in Texas, back in 2012, I think. And it really kind of helped put us on the map a little bit, because David was a bit of a celeb and we were kind of unknown, and it gave us a shot in the arm. So I was always very grateful for that, David. Yeah.
You're most welcome. It was more for me than for you, actually. It was really great.
So listen, tell us about your career with horses. How did it start? Why did it start? Why have you taken the particular approach that you have? And where has it led you?
Yeah, that's okay. What, 3 hours?
Yeah, okay.
Everything, I think this is everything starts from inside, I think. And, from the first memories I have, there were horses, not on television, basically, mostly. But if there was a pony ride at a fair or a trail ride when we went camping, I was there. I was in 1,000%.
And where was this? Where were you born?
I grew up in New England.
Okay.
So
which part of New England?
I grew up north of Boston, Marblehead, Massachusetts. I recollect now that I had seen hoofprints on the sand at the beach. It was very close to our house, and I had seen that, but I had never seen any horses. And fast forward years later, when I did the tour that I ended up in Texas was my last stop, my original goal for that tour was to take my horses all the way to that beach and put their hoofprints on the sand there, like the prodigal son returning or something. And it was a tremendous journey. I mean, in the second stop, one of my horses kicked the other one in the head and broke his skull. And yeah. I mean, it was just fractured. He didn't have any. They were gonna, open him up and pull all the stuff out. And I said, "What's, does he need that?" And they said, "No, but it'll have a dent." I said, "I'm fine with the dent. You don't have to open him up." So he had a superhero mask that he had to wear, and he did cameos on the tour stop,
crazy,
for 2 tour stops, and then he was back. Interestingly enough, the very next stop, when he came out of the hospital, the horse that kicked him, I had to keep him in a stall because they didn't want him running around and creating a lot of air movement. And he had his head out of the stall, and the horse that kicked him in the head was outside the stall with his head in there, and they were grooming each other. And it's like,
oh.
This is really something special. But anyway, so we ended up getting to put those hoofprints on the beach, and we made a video with a guy by the name of Rob Foley, who was a veteran who was on the verge of killing himself, who was saved by horses.
Oh, no.
And he met me on the beach there. That was not planned. My plan was just make the hoofprints, make a nice little pretty picture, and that was also moving. I put him up on a horse, because I thought he had been riding, and he's a what do you call it, a Navy SEAL.
Okay.
Fit. He's going to get on this horse. It's no big deal, right? And he was not. He had brain damage. He lost his balance, and I got him on the horse, and I had him just put his head back and the eyes closed, and I have photographs of this. It's so moving to me, this thing that I had not planned at all. He just called me out of the blue and said, "Oh, I saw your video of horses on the beach. I'd love to do that someday. Where are you?" "I'm in Maine." "Okay. Can you be there in September?" So all these fascinating things happened on this tour that were not by design. And then right before I came to Texas, I was in Tennessee doing a benefit for kids in school there was not enough money for their, school supplies. And the teachers were digging in their own pockets to come up. So I said, well, we can raise money for these kids in the school. And we go to Tennessee to do this. And I said, oh, the kid's going to come to the show in the evening. Oh, they can't go. Most of their parents don't have cars. I said, well, why don't we get a bus? Let's put them in a bus, bring them. I want them to see this. And they, no, you need permission, and the bus has to be reserved 3 months in advance, and then you have to hire a driver. It's all this stuff. So I said, okay, well, why don't we just do a little show for them at the school?
Oh, that's cool.
Great idea. So we go over there in the afternoon, my son and I, and we set up on like a playground area. And playground grass is like tough, and the ground is super hard. And I set up a little round pen, and they were supposed to bring up class by class, for 5 minutes, 10 minutes to look at the horses. And they decided to bring all the kids from kindergarten to sixth grade. So, I'm trying to find something that'll work for them and keep their interest. But mostly the younger ones were only interested in the fact that the horse pooped, right?
Yeah, naturally.
So I pick up the poop in my hand and I say, why is this poop different than your poop? Why is it that, this doesn't stink? And, so, horses eat grass. I'm trying to, so. But I was not making a great impression with this group of. There were 600 kids, by the way, around this tiny round pen. Yeah. So I said to my son, "Go get the balloon set up for the bow and arrow shoot. I'm going to do a bareback and brideless bow and arrow balloon shoot for these guys. That'll impress them." And my son's going, "This is a bad idea. It was, arrow with all these kids around." I said, "No, there's only one kid over by where the target will be. He was a severely handicapped kid in a wagon." And I said, "Just roll the wagon around to the other side. It would be fine. It'd be fine." And it was fine. I did put the music on. I shot the book. It was so great. Everybody cheered. And then my dismount is I throw a leg up over the neck and slide down. This is, we've been warned, don't do this. But it's the coolest way to get off, and it's the easiest way, actually. But I didn't realize in Tennessee, it was like 95 degrees and 95% humidity. My pants had got so much sweat that I went like this, and my leg didn't come, and I landed on my arm and broke 2 ribs. So when I was
in front of 600 kids.
When I was at your event, I had 2 broken ribs.
Oh, man. You were stoic. Okay, well, I had no idea that you were suffering like that when you came and did the gig for us. And you were, that was heroic. But listen, let's get back to you and so I take it you didn't come from a horsey family, right?
No, right. So we started back in Marblehead with the footprints in the sand, and then any chance I had, I would go to horses in junior high.
Where was this coming from, do you think? Was it some genetic? What, did you have like some great aunt or someone who was?
No, well, I can tell you that my great grandfather in Germany was retraining military horses to pull plows for farmers in the end of the 19th century. Okay, I only found this out later.
Okay, so there is a genetic line for you.
It's genetic, yes, and also I think we share the same name. Actually, I think is named after. But so, that's the physical piece. The emotional piece, I don't. It's inside. The minute I saw the Lone Ranger, Io Silver standing, it was just, it grabbed me. Years later, I went to the Navajo Nation with my friend George Hardeen, who was like great grandnephew of Houdini, the great Hardeen, or something like that. And he was running the newspaper for the Navajo Nation, and he introduced me to a guy by the name of Nevi, who was the healer leader of the Navajo Nation at the time.
Mm-hmm. What year is this? When are we?
Oh, that had been in the 90s.
Okay.
And here's this guy, and he's bent over like a question mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we find out he's started over like 3,000 horses.
Okay.
And George says, would you like to have a blessing? I said, yeah. They have some corn pollen, I think, and things that they're doing. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, he wants to talk to you before he'll give you a blessing. I said, okay. He asked me, he says, horses, huh? I said, yeah. He says, why? I go, oh, boy. I said, well, I think it's something inside me that I could not ignore. I had to pay attention to this feeling inside that the horses brought to me. And he looked at me and he went, good. And then we did the blessing ceremony with the corn pollen and off we went riding in the desert. So it's in there. And I can't explain that. You know, Pat Parelli, you mentioned him, he makes light of it. He said there's horse people and there's people, there's the other kind, right? This is part of his patter, but it's true, I think. It's in there and you can't let it go. I think if you do let it go, it'll come back and it'll bounce on you at some point. You'll see
Yeah,
one
yeah. It
surface.
doesn't let you go. But
Yeah.
okay, so you were enamored of horses. How did you get involved in becoming a professional horseman? What was
Well, there's a very long path, which I won't bore you with the whole thing, but I took some riding lessons when I found out in college that instead of doing PE, you could do horseback riding. So I went up to Gloucester, Massachusetts, took these riding lessons, and they made me post without stirrups, and I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. And, it's like,
normal stuff? Yeah.
here's a horse, you're going to just jump him over this little jump, and the horse would refuse. And I was over on the other side. I said, this is not so much fun, but it beat doing PE in college. So
Yeah.
I did that. I went to a couple of horse camps, but.
And what were
really,
you studying at college out of interest?
I studied, at that time, I was in computer science, and then I switched to music.
Okay.
And then I went for a short time, I went to Berklee College of Music, which is now a very famous jazz school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then after 3 semesters in there, I hit the road and I traveled playing music for a dozen years. And I ended up in California. And then in California, I got a degree. I finished a degree in computer science while I was playing music to support myself. And I got married to a veterinarian, and all of a sudden, we had this thing, DINK. Remember this thing, DINK? Dual income, no kids.
Okay. Okay.
And we looked at each other, and I said, I always wanted to have a horse. And she goes, me too. And we hadn't even discussed this.
How old were you at this time?
30.
Okay.
30-ish.
Yeah.
And so we got our first horses, and we really didn't know anything. I was
And
trying
this
to.
was out in California.
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
At Sacramento.
Okay.
And I was trying to remember, like how do you clean? Had this horse, and I had a hoof pick, and how do you clean? And I was trying to remember. Oh, we hold it this way, and I was trying to. All these memories were not coming back so quickly, but we had horses, and we started doing stuff with horses, and I was working as a contractor for IBM, and I found myself staring at the pictures of the horses on the wall of my cubicle more than I was looking at the screen. And I said, I got to do something different.
Yeah.
And at the time, I had won a World Grand Championship in Tennessee with my horse. And
Doing what?
it's just pleasure class, it was a Tennessee
Western
walk
pleasure.
horse. It's English pleasure, I think. Yeah.
English. I love how they call these things world, and then they happen in like these parts of the US.
Well, there aren't many Tennessee walking horses in other parts of the world. There are now, but there weren't then. Yes, but yeah, it was a big deal. 17,000 people.
Yeah,
17,000 people watching me go around.
No, but hold on, see, that's a big jump to go from saying, well, my wife and I want to get a horse, and then a horse, and then boom, I'm winning this big competition.
Well, it was like 8 years of, we start with the little shows, and I'm skipping all this stuff because it.
And why Tennessee Walkers?
Well, that's a good question. So I remembered when I was a kid at one of these 2-week riding camps, they had a horse there that was so smooth. And what I know now is it was just really smooth Western jog. It was like just so much fun to ride and tip off into a lope and whatnot. So we went looking for that. And I found this one Arabian, believe it or not, who had that.
Okay.
And I said, well, I got to have it. And my wife took one look at it. It was gray, and he had massive melanomas under his tail. And she says, you're not buying this horse. I said, oh. So people started telling me when I said, I can't find another one, that I didn't know to look for quarter horses that were Western pleasure horses. I didn't know. So somebody said, you want smooth, try a Tennessee walking horse. So then we got hooked with that. And I wrote a book and made some videos about how to train walking horses in a natural way. because the tendency in the industry has been the opposite and quite cruel in some cases. So
Again, that's a big jump to say, oh, and then I wrote a book, and don't end up writing a book and getting a book published unless you're good and people kind of know that you're good.
I self-published.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I sold a lot of them. What I found was that, especially because so I'd already been doing some Parelli with horses at this point.
Okay.
And
So they found the Parelli method at that point.
yeah, I mean, we could talk about that some. Let's back up to that. So
Okay.
as I was watching horses and learning about horses during this period of 8 years, I went to the state fair and I saw Ray Hunt. And at the state fair in California, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they did a colt start. It's like 106 degrees in August, and they gave him 30 minutes to get on an unstarted colt. And they did 18 days in a row, 18 different colts. So I'm watching Ray Hunt, and sitting in a group of normal citizens. They're not horse people, most of them. They're just watching this guy. And I'm watching him, and he goes, pretty quick here, he's gonna, you'll see him flick his ear over here towards me. Or pretty quick here, he's gonna flick that fly off his leg or something. And all of a sudden, in 2 minutes, the horse is following around like a puppy dog. And I'm going, nobody sees the miracle that's going on here. All the wrestling people are doing with horses. This is unbelievable. So, and I don't know, did you ever get a chance to meet him?
I mean, no, never did.
I mean, he was an ornery old coot. I mean,
they always are, these people. Yeah.
but he had a love for these horses, and he was pretty well crippled at this point. So day one, he started that horse. Day two, he started the next horse from the horse that he started the day before. Okay. This is the kind of miracle worker he was. Anyway, I watched him for 18 days, and then the next year I came back, and Pat Parelli was doing the demo, and he had actually, I was already trying the stuff I'd seen Ray Hunt do, but Pat had systematic way of helping you to find these things. And then I started, with that. And when I won the World Grand Championship, I said, okay, I'm not going to do IBM anymore. I started teaching people how to get better results with their walking horses because I had a name in that field. And I found out they couldn't lead their horses, they couldn't tie their horses, they couldn't saddle their horses. So I said, you guys need a foundational element. And I started teaching what Pat was offering. And I called him one day and I said, I'm selling a lot of your halters and sticks and books and stuff. What do I have to do to get this stuff wholesale? He said, become an instructor for me. I said, okay. So that's how that journey came about. And so the idea of when I started bringing this information to the walking horse people, it was like bringing water to the desert, right? They were so thirsty for this.
Interesting.
That it became very, satisfying. I didn't have to think too hard. I knew what they needed and they wanted it. It's like, it's always tends to be the case. I know what you need and you don't want it. How do I get you to want it? This is a motivation question, and now I'm into marketing and this was like bringing water to the desert. So we did this. I did this for many years, and then I started moving away from just the gaited horses and started my passion for Liberty horses.
Okay.
Which was the other piece of the inspiration from back in Boston. We used to go to the Ringling Brothers circus.
Okay. Yeah.
Saw the Liberty horses there, and I was just fascinated with that. Also in Boston Garden, I saw.
Okay.
He was the head rider of the
Spanish riding school.
Spanish riding
Is that
school.
him on the wall behind you?
No, but it is the Spanish riding school.
Yeah. Yeah.
And good eye. So they had flown the horses from Vienna. And all the riders. I have the program here somewhere. and KLM they show the horses getting on these big airplanes to come, and they hung a couple of chandeliers over the ice hockey rink, basically, where in Boston Garden, and they did a show there that just oh my God, the horses are dancing in there, so elegant and rhythmic, and everything was so phenomenal about these. And I did not go that dressage path, but it was in my head.
Yeah.
This thing was possible.
Yeah.
And many, many years later, I started working with Joanna Mendel Shaw, dancing with horses, and I had a horse that would do piaffe and passage, and I was able to do stuff with her, and so some of that was starting to come to fruition. And then even more recently, I started hanging out with Bent Branderup, who has taken this whole idea of lightness to a whole.
You guys can have a moustache off.
Yes. He does this thing. I do this thing.
Yeah, but I mean,
this for me is like, somebody asked me why the mustache. I could tell you a dirty story about this.
Please.
I don't know if you want to hear the dirties. Maybe. The clean story is circus ringmaster. This is my sort of persona thing.
Did you always have that mustache, or did that come in with your horse thing?
Before.
Okay.
Well, I didn't curl it until later.
Okay. I just wanted to, not everyone who's listening or watching will know who Bent Branderup is, and some people will, but he is the sort of leading light in what you would call the Northern Baroque system of dressage. He's Danish and very well known in that field. Lots of books, lots of sort of training methodologies, etc. But sort of training in the manner of, say, the 17th century Northern Baroque way, and doing it very elegantly and very well. So that's who Bent Branderup is. He's quite a celeb in that end of the dressage world.
Yeah. He calls it academic art of riding. He coined that phrase.
Yeah.
And he's
he nicked that phrase from the old masters who called it that. But yes, or let's say he has revived it. Exactly.
Yeah. He also revived the knighthood.
That's right.
He has this, he's very pompous, and so he has this, this knighthood, and you pass these knight levels and stuff, but he says in the beginning, I lifted this from Nuno Oliveira. Him and his buddies used to have this organization, knighthood, and you had to pass these tests in order to be able to, to keep up with each other. And he said, nobody can do those. Those are impossible tests. So I decided to make one that was accessible. So I think everything he does is as admirable in that way. But what I love about him is he tells me that he's more of a historian than he is a horse trainer. And he has studied every single master all the way from Xenophon up to current. And he has tested each of those methods on horses and found which methods worked for which horses, which not. And so he arrived at this place where he thinks that he's gathered the best of all of them for the ways to approach different horses. And now he has these instructors that have taken it and are doing, you know them? Christopher Dahlgren and Marius Schneider.
Marius Schneider, yes. Well, yeah, I do indeed. And I haven't met them, but I'm aware of them. I'm aware of their great work, yes.
Right. So whereas he would, all along he was pretty strict and strong about, it has to be done this way and this and that. Since he's incorporated them as instructors, they have these instructor meetings where it's all brainstorming, and Christopher will say, I think we should try this. And he says, great, try it. Let me know how it works. So he's eliciting new stuff from these guys that are in the field doing it, and who are brilliant, by the way. Those guys are so brilliant.
Yeah, they are.
So anyway, I don't know how we got into Bent Branderup.
Well, mustache. Interestingly, Bent Branderup is very much a European thing, and you're very much an American base. So how does that marry up? You're doing the stuff.
You're asking me questions that have miles of trails we could go. So
indeed. Well, that's the point of the podcast, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if we'll get back to the Bent Branderup story and the circus inspiration of the circus horses to do liberty. But I'll close that chapter by saying that he also worked in the circus. Bent. Okay. And he has got that showman kind of an attitude.
Yeah.
To carry
Which
on.
circus did he work in?
He was in Germany, but I don't know which one.
Okay. There are some very good ones there.
Yeah. So let's go to the European thing. So I grew up in, we had a Jewish household. My grandparents barely spoke English. They spoke Yiddish. My grandmother came over on the Lusitania before it sunk. And she came over 2 years after my grandfather did. He had to come and work on a farm to raise enough money to send her over. And at that time, she had a 2-year-old baby that they had to say was a suckling infant for free passage.
Mm.
And so I was able to look up the what do they call those? The manifest, ship's manifests.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole organization at Ellis Island, and I found all their records of when they came in. Fascinating stuff. So
when did they come in? What year?
1905 and 7.
Okay.
Those, and my other grandparents on the other side also came. I had to kind of research for them also. So we have this Jewish household in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and my sister and my aunt. So my father's sister, who's also had the same parents as my grandparents that came over, fascinated with languages. She taught Spanish, Latin, Hebrew, and French. She was a language teacher. And my sister got that. And my sister was learning all these languages and fascinated with foreign culture. And we always had foreign exchange students at the house. So they dressed me.
Do? What did they do for a living?
My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad was a chemical engineer.
Okay.
And side note, he worked for Borden Chemical Corporation when they invented Borden's Elmer's glue all, the white stuff.
Okay.
That came from my dad.
Okay. Never did.
So we had, we had those, people from India, and they would dress me up in a sari, and we had people from Germany and from Spain, and I had castanets, and the foreign culture was rampant. And also my folks were square dancers and folk dancers. So New England square dancing, not quite like the stuff down in Texas, but it is still call and do formations according to a called pattern. And then they would do contra dances, which were more Celtic.
Yeah.
And then Greek, Macedonian, Turkish. So the culture started to flow in through the dance.
So you were exposed to all kinds of cosmopolitan stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And my sister, when she retired from teaching, she started writing books. And the first book she wrote was European Cultures, Manners, and Traditions Explained for Americans. And basically she says to take the idiot buffoon Americans, stop them from making faux pas in business. So like she said, don't talk business to the Italians until you've had food. Or don't be the first one to bring up money. You wait. Even if it takes 2 days, you wait. Don't be, she would have all these cultural things that she had explored. And then she went on to write a series of 5 books about Asia and South America and all these cultural awareness books. I'll never forget, she wrote one. The one she wrote on Japan was she would interview people. She didn't necessarily go, but her best source was foreign people who lived in America, because they saw the cultural differences firsthand. They ran smack into them like a truck, right?
Yeah. So
she would interview them and say, what's different? How can I help Americans not to be so crass when they go over? And so she talked to this guy, Shigemichi Takada. I remember his name. He married a friend of hers, and she gave her the stuff for the book, and it says when you go to somebody's house, you present a gift, and they will take the gift and they will not open it because they don't want to embarrass you in case you couldn't afford a nice gift. They accept graciously the gift, and they would put it away in another room. So it was great. So she puts this in the book, and then years later she goes to Japan and she goes to visit Shig's brother, and she brings him the gift and presents it to him, and he takes it, rips it open. Wow, look at this! And she came home and she was furious. She called up Shig and she said, "You gave me wrong information for the book." He grabbed the thing. He didn't put it aside. He said, "Oh, that's my brother. He's an asshole."
That's funny.
Anyway, so there's a lot of European culture in my life, and I got to go to Germany and visit the town where my grandparents grew up,
which is where?
Nunnenweihe in Baden-Baden.
Baden-Baden. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's and we had to, the first time was very interesting because the Jewish cemetery was not that well marked.
Yeah.
And we managed to find it, and it was locked. We had to climb the fence to get in, and I found the gravestones. And
Yeah.
after the war, the government had restored the gravestones that had been desecrated. So my great grandfather had a new plaque and a new stone
Yeah.
there. But there were only two Jewish families, and all the all the gravestones had that name or the other name. It was Dreyfus.
What's interesting too, I mean, I'm half Jewish, and I know from experience that Jews are not often found in the horse world. And in fact, the horse world has been a famously and historically anti-Semitic environment because for various reasons.
I have to laugh.
So you went in as a Jewish boy, latecomer, with a lot of passion, obviously a lot of talent, and then quickly went pro. Did you encounter much anti-Semitism, even if it was unconscious anti-Semitism
No.
on your path?
Well, I encountered a lot of anti-Semitism when I went to prep school because I was flunking out of high school and they sent me to a Protestant school, and there was a eye-opening experience
Yeah.
there. It was uncomfortable. I didn't like it, but then we talked our way into because there were three of us. They had three token Jews in this school, and we talked our way into having Friday night religious services in the crypt in the basement of the church, and they let us have wine. Right? So yeah, very important to have wine on Shabbos. Very important, candles and wine. Right? But yeah, no, it's funny you bring up this thing because I was flying home from a clinic once, and I'm sitting in the airplane, and there's a woman sitting next to me, and a guy sitting next to her, and I look, she has the ticket stub sticking out of the seat pocket in front of her. And I see it's Debbie Bet Halakmi. Etan, light hands, horsemanship.
No.
Okay. Okay. Well, they're pretty. He started a thing called cowboy dressage.
Okay.
So he's the guy, and he's from up here. So we happen to be on the same plane coming to. I had never met him, but I look over there and I see that I'm sitting. So I start up a conversation and show her the book I'm reading, which is probably yours. It may have been. And we started talking, and she looks at me and she says, I don't know how many Jewish cowboys there are in the world, but here I am sitting right between probably the only two.
Yeah, it's funny. But there you are, you find yourself in that world, you start being successful in that world, and now you become a Parelli instructor, but you have your own gig and you're doing the Liberty stuff. Talk us through how it goes from there and sort of bring us up to where you are now, and then we can talk a bit more generally about where you're going and how things are.
Well, I had an epiphany around the Liberty stuff. One of the things that happened was my sister had given me tickets to go to the circus, Big Apple Circus in Boston, and I saw this woman. The start of the Big Apple Circus was lights out, smoke fog machine, 6 gray Arabian horses milling around, interacting with each other, going up on their hind legs and stuff. And a figure comes out, hooded figure, walks out, and all of a sudden the horses just like gather around her. They stand on their hind legs and out. This is amazing. And then when the actual Liberty Act came during the show, they either had no side reins or like extremely loose side reins. And I said to somebody, I need to meet. I need to learn about this. So I sent her a note, and I'd already been back in California when she called me. And we started a friendship that has gone now more than 20 years. And I've learned so much about the choreography and the way that the traditional way of training circus horses. And I decided it all relies on the ring curb. So the ring curb is like the anchor for the behaviors. And I said, well, my thing is to do Liberty on the beach. So how can I create these choreography moves without the use of a ring curb or a round pin? And that became my passion, is to do that. And I feel like I'm pretty successful with that. Since circus is dying in America, there are, some super qualified Liberty horse trainers that are going to horse expos and whatnot. And they carry the horses that learned in the ring to the large arena, and it sort of works. They get kind of egg shaped, but they're such pattern learners that it sort of works for them. But my goal was to teach it in a way that they wanted to be in these patterns with me. So the epiphany came when I found this woman named Casey Cover, and she was teaching potbelly pigs using positive reinforcement bridge and target training.
Okay.
She thought she was going to, because potbelly pigs were so popular, she thought she was going to be able to make a living helping these idiots that would get them and not know how to train them, and train them using positive reinforcement in a great way. And so I met her, and she said, I'm coming out to California. One of my students runs a sea lion facility in Moss Landing, and we're going to do a horse and sea lion event. And would you like to come and be a visiting specialist or something? I don't know. Yes, sign me up. So I learned so much from the sea lion piece of this, all the use of positive reinforcement and the relationship building. And then Casey went back to the East Coast, Virginia, and I became really fast friends with Dr. Jennifer Zeligs, who was
I was just wondering if you had met her. Yes.
Yeah.
I met
So
her for the first time.
so I met her when she was Jennifer Hurley. She was married before, and she took back her maiden name. But this was eye-opening. I understood, sort of positive reinforcement from an organic standpoint. When I was a kid, my neighbors had a dog. I trained the dog. I had cookies. It was sort of innate. But she opened me up to the art and science of this, and that my training.
In a nutshell, what did she do? Because I think I'm actually going to have her come on the show, hopefully in a few weeks. So this can act as a bit of an opener for her. And that for the viewers and listeners, Jennifer Zeligs is an extraordinary animal trainer. She's also kind of a university professor at Oxford now, and she has worked in zoos with wild animals of all kinds all over the world. And you think, well, why do they need training? You think, well, what happens when the veteran, when you need the vet to come and you need the lion to let you do its teeth, or you need, and the lion has a heart condition, so you can't put it under general anesthetic. So, and she's that person who then spends a month with that lion or the sea lion or the tortoise or whatever it is, getting them to be okay. And what's so crazy about her, she's like across all these different species. Such an interesting lady, Buddhist. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, what was the nutshell she gave you?
She's a secular Buddhist.
Yeah,
and it has helped her a lot, with her own things. But so in a nutshell, because you mentioned it, her training starts with the relationship. So the number one, I use this in every lecture, every class. Number one rule of animal training: come bearing gifts. Be the person that the horse or the animal looks forward to seeing every day.
Yeah.
Right. That's going to start you off on the right path. And these are unconditional gifts. You have this one condition: you can't be aggressive. You can't mug me for the treats. But that's the only. And even if they are, you can toss the treats and the cookies over the fence to them into a bucket or something. So it's really unconditional. And then you can, once they realize that you are, kind of a good thing in their lives, you can start asking them to make an exchange. If you'll put your foot on this, I'll give you some more treats, and this kind of thing. So, but she calls it the relationship bank account. You want to put more in than you take out, because the times when you take it out, when the equine dentist comes, or the trail loading that they have to go because there's a fire, all those things, withdrawals from the relationship bank account, you want to have a giant, massive, wealthy relationship bank account that'll carry you through anything that you need to do with your animal. And there's just a Bill Gates. If you ask Bill Gates to give you $1,000, it's like pocket lint, right? Mm-hmm. But if you ask somebody who only has $10 for $1,000, it's life ending. Mm-hmm. Could be even, if he had to save his life, he couldn't get it done. $1,000. So the idea of building this relationship bank account, that's number one. Number two is her focus, even stronger than mine, because she was mostly dealing with, I'll say, wild animals, let's say, not non-domesticated animals. That's a better way of saying it, is to take care of the husbandry first. The first thing they need to learn is, how to weigh them, how to take their temperature, how to, take blood draws, how to examine their teeth, everything that they are going to need in their life to be well cared for. That's her training priority. Brushing their teeth, all these things. I mean, and when you watch the young ones, all of her animals came from rescues. They were beached animals that couldn't be released to the wild after they were healed. And they're aggressive. And, and I'd see them and she'd be there, with a broom trying to defend herself. And I'd come back 2 months later and she's brushing their teeth. And it's like, oh my God, this woman is a miracle worker in this area.
Yeah.
So the mechanics of using positive reinforcement, and the other piece of the puzzle, if you look at her book, it's called Animal Training 101. There's 6 operant conditioning methodologies for training any animal. And the point of the book is, of course I have a preference for positive reinforcement and target training because it's the gentlest and most cooperative way, but it's not the best way in every situation. So here's all the ways, here's the drawbacks and benefits of each of them. You choose your own path. This hit me, smack in the face, because we have this whole horsemanship tradition, which has value to the animal. Negative reinforcement has a terrible sounding name, but pressure and release doesn't sound so terrible, but it's the same thing. But we've been training horses this way for thousands of years, with extraordinary results if you do it tactfully. So why is this? It's because it's ethological. It's part of the way the horses interact with each other.
Yeah.
Whether you want to call it hierarchy or pecking order, it doesn't really matter. It's about the individual pair relationships, like one's going to push the other until they find some common ground. And if you are accepted into the herd as non-threatening, most likely because you came bearing gifts, which is from the other side, right? You can now interact with them in this way and get results where people who are trying to do it other ways are not successful. So here I am. I have this. That's the whole foundation for Parelli is all that. So I have all this foundation, and I'm doing great. And now I have this, and I just married them. The first person I saw that married them was Alexandra Kurland, clicker train your horse. And in her book, she says, go ahead and play the Parelli games, wiggle your rope, and when the horse backs up, click and give him a cookie. So she already had this idea that you could do both. And I just ran with that. So, I can't thank Jennifer enough. Plus, I got to go hang out with sea lions. For all the time I was with her, I never asked her if I could do something with a sea lion. I always felt like I wasn't qualified. It was really, I watched her, be so strict with her trainees and stuff. I said, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to make a mistake. I don't need to do it. And then right before in her last year, I went ahead and she let me go in and feed a fish. That was the task. Feed a fish in the proper way. From the outside of the fence, I could do some targeting and stuff, but it's this thing about balancing, using positive and negative reinforcement. It's become kind of a catchphrase for me, but I still run into it, and it bothers me that there are people in both camps that think the other one is wacko.
As you know, if you followed any of my work, I'm an autism dad, and we have a whole career before this podcast in helping people with neurodivergence, either who are professionals in the field. Are you a therapist? Are you a caregiver? Are you a parent? Or are you somebody with neurodivergence? When my son Rowan was diagnosed with autism in 2004, I really didn't know what to do. So I reached out for mentorship, and I found it through an amazing adult autistic woman who's very famous, Dr. Temple Grandin. And she told me what to do. And it's been working so amazingly for the last 20 years that not only is my son basically independent, but we've helped countless thousands of others reach the same goal, working in schools, working at home, working in therapy settings. If you would like to learn this cutting edge neuroscience-backed approach. It's called movement method. You can learn it online. You can learn it very, very simply. It's almost laughably simple. The important thing is to begin. Let yourself be mentored as I was by Dr. Grandin and see what results can follow. Go to this website, newtrailslearning.com. Sign up as a gold member. Take the online movement method course. It's in 40 countries. Let us know how it goes for you. We really want to know. We really want to help people like me, people like you out there live their best life, to live free, ride free, see what happens.
It's prevalent. I don't want my horse.
Controversy in the horse world, David. Really, I'd never noticed this. I've spent all these decades in the horse world. Never have I encountered anything other than people behaving in a loving and open-hearted way to each other.
Okay, point taken. But these are people who are trying to do the right thing for the horse,
Absolutely.
right? They're not, trying to get results so much as they are trying to. They both say they're for the horse, but these people will come to me and they'll hire me, knowing what I do, and say, "Well, I want my horse to love me for me, not for the cookies." And I said, so you'll deny him cookies to make the loving harder, right? And my assistant, Pepino, she said, "Here's what you tell them." He said, "Food is nurturing. Nurturing is love. You want to love your horse." Just say it simply like that. So I sort of reverted to that. So we get that side, and then we get the other side that says,
it's also worth it is worth just pointing out there that in the mammalian caregiving system, what is the first thing that a baby seeks from its mother?
Yeah, breast milk
and milk. So it's there, written into the DNA code. Yeah. Why fight it? Yeah.
And and I wonder why I have such a sweet tooth, right? And then when I finally had a daughter, and I go back to Marblehead, and she's sitting in the back seat with my mom, and she's being a little fussy. My mom reaches into her purse and pulls out some chocolate chips or M&Ms or something, starts stuffing them in her mouth. I go, oh. No, it's all coming back to me. Why? She used to get me to drink milk. She used to put chocolate chips in the bottom of the milk.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But so from the other side, the other perspective, absolutely, this natural horsemanship thing, there's a lot more, aversives, discomfort to try to get the horse to find what you're looking for, to be easy and motivated to do it in a positive way. So it's a little more ruffled feathers could be, but in no way less than that you would ever see them doing with each other.
Absolutely.
But the best practitioners of this, like Buck Brannaman. I love Buck Brannaman. Have you read his book? Oh my God.
No, I have not. Yeah.
You must.
Maybe I need to get him on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, you must read his book. I don't know what he's doing now, but his book, it tears your heart out what he went through as a kid. If anybody should be beating horses to get them to do stuff, it should be him. And he just pushed all that stuff that was done to him as a child away and asking to treat the horses the opposite. So to me, he can't do any wrong. But he did say that anybody who uses treats to train horses is an idiot. So I don't think I'm an idiot, but I understand where he's coming from.
It's an interesting one, this, because people often ask me, Rue, do you use treats? And in the 15 years or so since we last met, for reasons too complicated to explain, we are now also classical dressage trainers in the sort of Baroque style, and that came through autism, not through us particularly wanting to, because we realized that when the horse was in collection, the kid spoke if it was in the saddle in front of you, because of oxytocin, of the rocking of the hips, and we all know how beautiful it feels. Well, that bliss hormone is also a communication hormone, and that's horseboy method. And so because we had to start training the horses more and more this way, it was just a natural progression. And anyway, so people come, we now have a stable of schoolmaster horses. People come from all over the world, and they learn with us, whether they're learning the therapeutic side, the dressage side, or both, usually both. And so people often ask me, do you use treats? And what I always say is when I remember to. And I wish I remembered to more often, but I'm distracted with stuff and I did. So I'm not like the dude who walks around with the fanny pack with the, blah, 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 and it's all really organized. And no, because I just don't operate that way in my life, period. I get round to things when it occurs to me. So sometimes I got treats and sometimes I don't. And I find weirdly that works for me very well, because what will often happen is when the horse is being very generous, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have a Scooby snack. I should go get you a Scooby snack. And the horse knows the word Scooby snack, so I'll be like, oh yeah, I need a Scooby snack. Like, yes, you do. So you just hang out here and I'll sort of run off to the feed room and grab a Scooby snack and come back. And there's sometimes that's even more special in a weird way, and then sometimes I've got the Scooby snacks on me. And then, like you, my only thing is, look, don't mug me. I did a lot of early trick training with Alan Pogue, because we were both in Texas. He's an amazing dude. I'm trying to get him to come on the show. And his adage about always your mouth to their hand, never your hand to the mouth, never the mouth to your hand, is a very good one. And I found that horses can discern. It's really interesting. Once you just say, hey, listen, please don't mug me, and then very occasionally when they get a bit cheeky, like cheeky, and they're like, okay, fair enough, that there isn't this big deal about it either way.
To be honest, there can be. And I'm not the greatest example because I don't care if they mug me, right? So
Right.
I like it when they're nuzzling and they're begging and stuff. But it's not really. Jennifer hates it. She hates seeing my horses. What are they doing?
Sure.
Because she draws the line very hard, and I understand
also,
why.
I guess we're also not dealing with aggressive carnivores like she is, but
and no one else has to deal with my horses. Like if you were
well,
doing therapy
the
horses,
thing is, everyone has to deal with mine. See, that's the difference. So I can't count the number of people who come and sit on my horses for piaffe, passage, flying changes, caprioles, blah, blah, they do it, and they'll do it joyfully and happily for anybody and their dog that comes through the door. And
so Jennifer,
so you know what I mean. It's not other people have to deal with my horses daily, and it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
It's one of the cases where, or public performance horses or therapy horses or horses that are being used around kids. These horses have to have an extra level of
they do discernment,
of concern about being about keeping those kids safe. They can't be mugging. It's not appropriate.
Indeed.
So there's an extra level of care and caution that goes into that. And Jennifer does it with all her animals because they're basically non-domesticated animals and they could take your head off. And so, but the message, the training message is the fastest path, yea, the only path to the food is through the behavior.
Yeah.
So there's no path to the food where that you head towards the food. That path doesn't exist. But there are plenty of paths that you can choose, and I will let you choose them all the time if you go through the behavior. And the behavior may be standing quietly waiting for a treat.
Yeah.
So this is fundamental and foundational to the use of treats. But anyway, what bothers me is only the ones. I don't care if you come to me and say sometimes I use treats, sometimes I don't. Don't care if you come to me and say I never use treats, or I might say to you, would you be interested in trying, see if it makes a difference? Or, I might have a discussion.
Sure.
But really, the answer is you do what you want. Both of these systems work great. I found that when I married them, I'm getting extraordinary results. That's way more than twice as good as one or the other.
Yeah.
And I may never get as good, as Buck Brannaman is with horses, with my way, but I'm getting closer than if I didn't use treats. I'm getting closer.
I think too, there's also a thing of how you want to live your life as a horseman and how you want to interact with nature, period. As we know, horses sort of attract a certain personality type that is controlling, and that can be a very good thing in certain ways, and it can be a very bad thing in certain ways. And the other thing we have to allow for is that the greatest acts of criminality of man to their fellow man have either happened basically on the backs of horses or off ships. It's unfortunate for the horse, but we have used them as vehicles for this. And so there's a kind of fierceness that comes genetically down the line of horse people from the steppe all the way through, the Gothic lines and the Ibero-Celtic lines and the Middle Eastern lines and, the Central Asian lines. These are warlike people. And so those of us who carry those genes tend to be a bit like that. And I think that's why horse people are so combative. They just can't help it. But at least we're not actually chopping each other's heads off with sabers anymore, but, sort of metaphorically all the time on Facebook. But it's of course, it's pointless. But I do think, like you, my feeling is people have the right to interact with the culture in the way that is right for them. And I think this is just so often missed. Like you, I go around, I don't know how many trainings I do, yearly in 40 countries, right? And it's different wherever I go. But what I always look out for, it's the one thing that I feel is glaringly missing from the training scale, the German training scale and all of that, or any of the methods, is the fundamental thing that we're all looking for and which the horse is looking for is joy. That's it. It's the only reason any of us get involved with horses. And we certainly don't need them for transport. You could argue in the therapy work that I do that there is a kind of a necessity there. But even there it's to feel good. Even there it's ultimately actually for joy, because oxytocin is joy. So, the function that the joyful brain is the learning brain. The joyful brain is the functioning brain. So it is still joy. So to approach the culture without that as the primary thing almost negates it from the start. And then joy becomes sort of accidental or spontaneous here and there with an awful lot of grump in between. Or we could sideline the grump. And so much of sidelining the grump is often, I used to be so much more judgmental than I am now. And now I go to all these different barns and I just notice the ones that are really joyful and where the horses are really joyful. And I see that people can keep their horses in all kinds of different ways. And they might be very different to the ways in which I keep my horses. But is it joyful? Is it a good vibe, a joyful vibe among the monkeys? And is it a good, joyful vibe among the ponies? If it is, I have nothing to say other than, here are some tools that will make it even more joyful. You know what I mean? But to say it's this or it's this, it's just.
Well, what's great about having a focus on liberty training is that if it ain't joyful, it ain't going to happen.
Okay, yeah.
Because the horse is going to leap. Now, if you do it in a stall, even in a stall, I've seen people cannot catch their horse in a horse trailer.
Yeah, sure.
So everybody that's, I'm surrounding myself with people who are desirous of learning something that you can't get there the other way.
Yeah.
So there's a I'm giving you, maybe the food as a motivator is a shortcut, right? It helps to make it not so time consuming that but I have so many students now that are gaining these joyful relationships with their horses from doing nothing, from sitting out there.
Absolutely.
Pat Parelli was the first one to say this, spend some undemanding time with your horse. It was like in chapter 1 of lesson 1 in the beginning of the program. But nobody listened. Even Warwick Schiller told me one day, he said, I saw him out there thing, and he said, we should be, we should be spending, this horse needs you to go out and hang out with him, spend undemanding time with him. He says, Linda Parelli was telling me this 10 years ago, and I didn't hear it till just now.
Yeah.
So
I couldn't agree more.
So with the liberty focus, people are very happy to do it, and it's making a huge difference. And I don't have to sell it really.
Yeah.
My newest assistant, her name is Gabriela Adamczewska. She's from Poland, and I say she's like the queen of undemanding time. I mean, and it's not it's because she doesn't have to force herself.
Yeah.
She can't wait to get to the barn. And she can't wait to just sit there and scratch them and cuddle them for hours. And the joy, and you see her, and she'd go for walks in the woods. And I said, you should be just turn them loose. They're not going to go anywhere. No, I'm worried about the moose, and I'm worried about somebody asshole coming with a car. I don't want to go. But those horses are never going to leave her. and moose jumps out, they're going to run to her. And just recently, the last couple of videos she sent me, she's got the rope around the neck and she's jogging out there. And then you see the road is like forever. This pony could go, from Poland to Germany.
Yeah.
But it's not going more than 50 feet.
Yeah.
It's coming back. So it's because, she has a hammock in the barn. There's a coffee maker and a hammock, and she's studying to be an osteopath in Germany. So she's reading her osteopath study material. And so I have her help me with all of my students, as if nothing more than an example.
The difficulty, I think, for a lot of people with this, so I think we have to be fair here, is so I'm lucky. I live with my ponies. They're right outside my door, right here, and they live on a mountain. So, and I can go trail riding with them, and they'll come with me as a herd. If I go for a walk, they'll all come with me as a herd. Hey, what's Auntie Dad up to today? And they're curious and they just want to hang. And I will just go and answer emails sitting on a rock in the field, and they'll come and they'll hang out with me. And so, and we make videos about this, telling people to do it, blah, 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 blah. But we have that luxury because this is how we live. And I totally get the people who, the vast majority of horse owners do not have that luxury, sadly. They have a job and they're battling for the time to spend with their horse. So after work, they've got to get to the barn and they only have this small window of time because maybe they have family and, so and so on. And maybe their husband isn't, into horses and doesn't want her at the barn all night, even though she probably would. And so there's a time pressure. And then there's also peer pressure. And then there's, I can only be in the arena because it's after dark, and it's, I get off work after dark and I've got to go in the arena, and the arena's, going to be full of people. So I've got to make sure I'm in there by 6:30, for my slot. And I've only got this slot and blah, 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 blah. And now we come along like assholes and say, oh, you've got to go and sit on a rock, on your mountain with your horses. And I, like you, I do an awful lot of sort of equine symposiums, and I was listening to somebody, effectively shaming people for not having the state of Wyoming as their backyard. I'm like, come on. No, surely what we should be doing is giving people solutions. So
and so that's exactly my point in this, is that okay, nobody is, I don't know anyone else in the world that's going to do what Gabrielle is doing.
Yeah.
But here's, you see, how this is working. Shave off 10 minutes.
That's it.
Just, and you'll talk to Jennifer about this. When you talk to Jennifer, she wrote a new book called Mindful Partners. There's a copy floating around here somewhere. No, that's a different book. And I took her Mindful Partners course online with her.
Okay.
And everything starts with 10 minutes of meditation.
Yeah.
To get yourself to the place where you can interact with a horse without bringing all that crap from the rest of your life. So, and I didn't like it. I did not like that. I didn't want to sit and do nothing. I wanted to spend the time with my horse, because although I preach undemanding time, I'm doing this stuff. And, and now I've started playing a lot of music. This music takes hours of practice. I'm not out there all that time. But what I did learn from her was, so I was doing pigeon training. I said, I'm going to train my pigeon or chickens. I was going to train my chicken.
Well, in your spare time,
because I love chickens and I love pigeons and I love training, and I didn't want to, my horses, already have like this relationship with the horses, and I'm taking this course. I want to try something fresh, right?
Okay.
So I found that, by having the pigeons fly to me and eat seeds out of a cup, that was very meditative for me.
I bet.
I didn't have to, practice some kind of meditation. I was just breathing and listening to they make a little sound when they eating. And it's like, it's fabulous. So shave off a piece.
Yeah.
And then maybe the most important thing, which you could ask her about it, is this thing she calls a reset. So when you find that you're interacting with the animal and you have lost that place, turn around 1 minute, just take 1 minute and find that place and then come back. And I have used that for myself and students thousands of times since I learned that from her.
Interesting.
You don't need to be out there for an hour. Now she does
No,
meditate for an hour a day or 2 hours a day or whatever. But
sure. But again, she has the luxury of that time because this is her job. You know, I hear you, and we found ourselves in this interesting position when we first moved to Germany. So we put some horses on a plane and we took them to Germany. And we weren't going to show up in Germany and buy a farm. And we were still running the ranch in Texas, and all that programming was still going on. I was actually commuting back and forth. And so we still had horses in Texas as well. And when we landed in Germany, we were like, okay, young kids, not a farm, apartment, board the horses, find the best place. But okay, you show up with 6 horses. You beggars can't be choosers. You got to find the barn that will take 6 slots. And so, all right. So
and real estate is a huge scarcity in Germany and Switzerland and stuff. When you
what
go
is, sorry?
barns, there aren't big, huge fields.
Well, ironically, there are, but there's loads of them actually. But there's a culture in the horse world there where horses go out in the summer and they don't go out in the winter. And they go out in the winter only in what they call a paddock, which is like a sandlot where they don't even put like a round bell, and they just kind of stand around for 2 hours, and then the rest of the time they go back in their stable. And so we found ourselves in that situation, and this was really interesting for us. So me and Ileana went, whoa, like this is now we really get what people are up against. And we had this like super grumpy barn owner who was like, this is the way, and blah 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 blah. And like, okay, well, where else are we going to go? So what we did is we came up with all these little strategies. Now, an obvious one for us was ride 1, lead 2, ride 1, lead, because big forests, no gates, no fences, easy trail riding, very easy to ride, exercise your whole herd. But you're not going to do that for 8 hours, right? And if a horse is going to stand in a stable, he needs to be moving for a long time to be happy to chill. And plus, where's he getting that social time? Where's he getting that touch? So one thing we did do, we came up with 2 strategies that really worked, which we now try to get people to do, but we understand that the culture of their barn may or may not allow it. But the first one was what we call crazy time, where we would put our horses together in the arena and put up fences, and they all jump. So we put these very wide, long fences, and we'd encourage them to just have fun. I didn't care if they jumped. I didn't care if they didn't jump. And then every 2 minutes I'd change the thing, make it a zigzag, make it wonky, put a big Buddha in the middle, chuck a yoga ball at them as they, anything I could do. And I came up with this idea of I'm no longer a horse trainer, I'm a horse entertainer. And so, because, the worst problem is boredom. And that in about 20 minutes of crazy time, which is also social time, and they'd stop and they'd roll and they'd stop and groom each other, and then they'd bugger off again. And I learned that there was a lovely rhythm to this. And I realized I could do this therapeutically. I could bring autistic kids into this, and we could calculate the distance that they were going down the long side, and how long it took them, and how long it takes me, and how long it takes. And then we get the cell phone out, and we do distance over time, and we get speed. Wow. And then we can calculate heights and distances and weights and team building and horsemanship and blah, blah, blah. And suddenly I had like a whole therapeutic program just with that. So I could do crazy time all day with my horses and get paid for it. But then I realized, oh, well, not all barn owners will let you do that. Or what if you've only got one horse? So then we also realized, and what if you're one person? So in Germany, they have this really good tradition called Reitbeteiligung, which means somebody who shares your horse, basically, with the idea that because horses are often stabled and standing there bored, you get other people to come in and ride them. And as you know, in many horse cultures, barn cultures, you can't touch my horse. No one else can touch my horse. But
right. We have it here, half lease. We call it a half
right,
lease.
Exactly. But not everybody does it. And so what we did was we created basically a tribe around our horses. And so we could be pretty sure that in the course of a day in the winter, various people would come in and do various things with them pretty regularly. So they were just entertained. Some of it was riding, some of it was taking them for a walk, some of it was a scratch, some of it was crazy time, some of it was in handwork, some of it was lunging, some of it was this, some of it was that. But someone was going to show up and do something nice. And So now we train people how to build these tribes and say, okay, David, you've only got one horse, and Sharon over there, she's got one horse, and Walter over there's got two horses and a mini, and you're all in the same barn. Why don't you get together and do this tribally? And the idea of non-demanding time, when I was in Mongolia, hanging out with horse tribes there, well, that's what you do because you're living in a tent, a ger, a big yurt, and the horses are just kind of there. They're just all around you. So, of course, you're spending undemanding time with your horse because you walk out your door to take a pee and there's a horse standing there. And you say, oh, hello. And you go to get the water from the river and there's 5 horses standing there. And you go to get firewood and the horses come with you to check out what you're doing. And so just your daily chores, just your daily, it's just, you sit outside strumming your guitar, the horses are there. Because that's your culture, that's your life. And I realized, well, that's where the whole thing began, was with tribes and groups of people just living with their horses. And we've created these crazy sort of artificial environments based on old cavalry barracks, really. That's sort of what those barns are.
Yeah.
But even those old cavalry barracks, those horses moved all day. That was the first thing. So when you put them in the box at night, they're like pretty happy to chill. And they were doing stuff in formation. So they had a lot of social time. And they went on field maneuvers all the time. So they were out in nature.
There was a thing, like my first horses that I saw, tie stalls.
Yeah.
They didn't move at all. But, those were working horses. That those tie stalls were created from horses that were grateful for the rest, right? They'd been working all day. They just
the
wanted
plow horses and all of that. Yeah.
I think there's a couple of things that happened, for better and for worse, when the horses were needed for work or transportation. So let's say prior to 1900, yes, there was a lot of crap being done to horses, but essentially there was an amount of connection to the horses that was required because you had to rely on them. And there were all these military ways of doing it with force and all this stuff. Those bad things existed, but the core of trying to have a relationship with the animal that lives with you, next to the cow, but pulls the plow, but also takes you to church on Sunday, whatever. These things were there. And then when the horse became just, a pastime and not required for transportation, I think that's the piece that got lost. Yes. So we end up with the horses in the stalls and nobody caring, and showing up and take a lesson and spurring them to go and just, you got to do this. I only have an hour. I think that culturally came when we didn't have to have a relationship with the horses because, without the relationship, we weren't having so much fun. But when we relied on the horse, we had to have a certain amount of empathy with them.
Right. And if you think about it, if you have to ride from, your house to the local town to the dry goods store, that's many, many hours you're spending with your horse right there. It's maybe going to take you 2 hours to get to town. Then you're going to do your rounds in town. That's going to take you 2 to 3 hours. Then a little visit to the saloon. Okay. Horses hanging out with some other horses. Then you come out or church, horses hanging out with other horses. And then you come back and then it's a couple hours home. You've been with that horse all day. Right. And it's interesting too. Yeah. People make a lot of bones about, it was all so bad back then. Was it? I'm sure there were bad people, but that was where horsemanship was at its apogee. There was a lot of fantastic horsemanship back then, and a lot of people who were genuinely loving and attached to their horses, probably more than they were to their children.
Yes. And in this century, that's where Tom Dorrance and Ray Hunt and those people they were bringing back that piece. That got eliminated by the culture. And so that's I think we're lucky. Dr. Miller wrote this book called The Revolution in Horsemanship, but his thing was that it came out of 3 things. One is the population of horse people is largely women, and women are not going to put up with the unempathetic approach. The dissemination of the information is now much easier to see and to get the information about how to have a great relationship. And the third is the prominence of these few characters that had it and were willing to share it. Tom Lawrence and the Dorrance brothers in general. So in the current, I feel like I'm luxury. I have the luxury. I'm floating on the work that they've done, and I'm in the right time because people are hungry for this. But for me, I'm not. I didn't. There's a couple of things I invented. A couple of small things that are original in thought. But I feel like I'm shining. I'm reflecting the light.
What are those things? What are those things that you invented?
Oh God, I can't think of it. I probably haven't invented anything.
That's modest. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the way that I didn't even invent these things. Every once in a while, I'll be teaching and I go, you know what? Nobody's doing that. I figured that out myself, huh? But I don't typically take pride on it. But I noticed, okay, so the one thing that about circles, I kind of changed the way that we teach circles because I don't have a round pen or a circus ring. So the common way of teaching a horse to be with you on a circle at liberty was to teach him about the circle, teach him about moving his hindquarters, and when he and facing you with the hindquarters moving. So what I noticed is that people were doing something called partial disengagement. So the horse is thinking about leaving you, and okay, you've tuned up my hindquarter yield, so I'm back, and it doesn't take more than like 2 laps before the horses figure out, there's nothing behind this partial disengagement. I might as well just go, and they do. Not maliciously, but there's nothing holding them there. So I said, let's change their mind. Let's make this thing that is us the best place on earth. So that when they arrive here, we make a big deal out of it. And when they think about leaving, we make it a little uncomfortable, but don't then say, okay, don't think about leaving, but keep going on this stupid circle. They say, hey, remember me? And then bring them back to you and say, what were you thinking? There's nothing out there. Everything good is here. So I changed the paradigm about these partial disengagements. Said, you're there's no try. You either do or do not, right?
Yeah.
You're with me or you're not with me. If you're not with me, you're going to come back here and find out how good it is here. And if you're with me, I don't have to keep nagging you and partially disengaging you, and you end up just dulling them to that request. So
can you now through that do the liberty out on a beach?
Yep.
And can you do that with a group of horses?
Yep.
Okay. So, and is
that
the key that you get them focused on you being now? Okay. So what happens if they're on that beach and unforeseen circumstance, a big spook, or let's go with that one, a big spook.
Okay, so I'll tell you that for 10 years I played with these liberty horses in arenas and did demonstrations and stuff, and I never wanted to take them to the beach. I just thought this is an impossible thing. So here these horses have been with me for 10 years. They're doing all these formations, all this liberty work. They know. These were the horses that I took to Texas at your place. Those 3. And
they were great.
I decided I'm gonna go to the beach and see. Okay. I just want to see if it works. I was too afraid to go, so I said. So I got 2 friends to come as outriders.
Okay.
And I said, I'm just gonna, if they take off, you have to go down and round them up and bring them back to me. And those horses never thought about leaving. It blew me away. It wasn't like I felt like I had trained something. They never thought about leaving. And the outriders said, we're bored. Can we go on a trail ride? And I said, sure. And they went down the beach and my horses didn't follow them. They stayed with me.
That's interesting.
And I didn't, yes, I did all the things that I said this would work for, but I sort of didn't believe it until it happened to me. It was like, they surprised me with how great it was.
That's interesting that you said they didn't follow the other horses down the beach. Now, you, of course, had built how many years of relationship with these horses by the time you did that?
10 years, yeah.
Yeah, so you were a decade in, right?
Yeah.
With this particular
But I did take my next group.
Okay. As you may know, if you've been following my work, we are also horsey folk here. And we have been training horses for many, many years in the manner of the old classical dressage masters. This is something which is often very confusing for people. We shine a light on that murky, difficult stuff and make it crystal clear. If you'd like to learn to train your horse in the manner of the old masters and really have fun and joy for you and your equine, go to our website, heliosharmony.com, sign up as a premium member and begin to take the Helios Harmony course, which will take you from 0 to the piaffe, where the horse is dancing on the spot, in hand, on the ground. And then from there, you can develop out to anywhere you want to. heliosharmony.com to unlock the secrets of the old masters.
So those horses have passed, and I've got the next group, and I wasn't so interested in doing the beach work. My focus had changed a little bit, but I decided to take them and just see what would happen, and they didn't leave either.
Okay.
They didn't care. There was one instance where I had horses take off at the beach. So my friend Meredith brought her horse, and she was going to film me. So she filmed me.
Of course, that's the day they take off. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, they were fine with the filming. Yeah. And we didn't get much good footage because she was holding her horse, and the horse kept nudging her, and the camera's going like this. And that wasn't so good. So now I got my horses, and they're at the beach grass. They're sitting around me, and I said, "Okay, Meredith, now it's your turn. I'll get the camera." And she's playing with her. So I said, "Just turn him loose. What's he going to do? He's like, where's he going to go? Enjoy this freedom." And she, so okay. So she turns him loose, and he runs over to me. Okay, we'll try it again. I send him back to her, runs over to me. Third time, he runs over my horses, and they get a thing going, and they're gone over the sand dunes, and I can't see them. Yeah. Oh boy, I have made a huge mistake, because this goes to the parking lot, and then that goes to the road, and God knows where they are. So
where is this, by the way? Is that
in Point Reyes in
I know Point Reyes. Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I climb up the sand dunes, and I see Scotty there, and I have my stock whip. They're trained to come to the sound of the stock whip because it's very loud, and I see Scotty there eating, and the others are like wandering down towards the parking lot. And I said, if I can get Scotty, I think the others will come back. So I called him and cracked the whip. He came over. I put the thing around his neck. The others came back and followed us back to the beach. So it was not the panic that I thought it would be. But if you're worried, bring a couple of outriders.
Yeah,
they're not gonna outrun the ridden horses. I mean, eventually they'll come to a stop.
Yeah. And I suppose choose your environment so that the freeway isn't right there.
My first experience with horses on the beach, I did not do well. There were people on the beach, and the horses get scared of they do get scared of the waves coming in, and they, so I teach people how to not be in the place where your horse is going to run when you get scared of the waves, and don't get knocked over and hurt. But, I made a lot of mistakes. There were people bathing there. It's like, oh my God, I killed somebody. So I'll tell you a Mike Farney story. Maybe this will be a good story for the end of our visit on the beach. So my very first clinic with Dr. Zellig's on the beach, after Casey, I did one myself with horses and sea lions. And so in preparation for going to the beach, I told the students, okay, we're going to come up to the sand dunes, and all I want you to do is just stand there and have your horse relax at that point. You don't have to go near the water. You don't have to go in the water. Just let them see it. We have lots of time. We have days to do this. You don't have to get anything done. Just be there and make sure that they're okay with it, because some of them are terrified. So I'm going to go in the water. So I go to get a wetsuit on, and I'm not experienced with this, and I'm stuck. I don't have any talcum powder. I can't get the thing on. And I come out, 20 minutes later, and Mike Farney, who was a Parelli instructor at the time, he was helping me. And Mike Farney is a 2-time Olympic skier. He is doing the giant slalom. He's like the adrenaline junkie.
He's also a big-time Parelli instructor.
Yeah, he was. Okay. So Mike's there, and I say, Mike, just make sure they don't do anything. Just let them just sit on the dunes while I'm getting dressed. I come out. Mike Farney's stripped down to his skivvies in the water, jumping around with all the students and their horses. He's a risk taker. Right? So yeah, I was a little too cautious. But yeah, Mike finally later got a pilot's license. And I said, "You're the last guy I want to fly with." But I think, have the beach is tough for some horses. Can be
Yeah,
really,
I mean, there's a lot of things. There's wind, there's the waves, there's, as you say, people, dogs, flappy things.
and those waves in Northern California are
They're
massive.
big. Yeah. What's your way of getting the horse used to the waves and that kind of buffeting wind that you get there without
Yeah.
them?
The wind, not so much, but the waves, it's like attacking their feet.
Mm,
And so the biggest advice for this
mm.
is be prepared to get wet. Because if that wave is coming up and you're trying to tell the horse it's okay, just go in there, but you don't want to get your shoes wet and you jump out, you have just set the wrong example, buddy. He is not going in if you're bailing. He said, "You're trying to get me to go in and you won't go in." So you're going to get your boots full of water if
Okay.
do this correctly. Plus, you'll be standing in the ocean side. So if they do get scared by a wave, they run away from you. They don't knock you over. Because I have been knocked over in the surf by horses trying to get out of the way of a wave. So that's the message. The simple answer, just go sideways along the shore, let the shore be like a fence. And eventually they'll get tired of, backing up and they'll see, oh, it lapped my foot. Some horses go straight in. Some horses you better have a line on because they will go from Point Reyes and try to swim to Japan, or at least Hawaii.
Okay.
I don't know what it is, but they get in and they just go. It really scares you.
And what have you done in that
I
situation?
had a line.
Okay.
Thankfully, I had a line. It doesn't happen that often, but just, be aware.
Very
Most of the time, your horse is terrified of the wave coming up, and you're going to spend all day trying to get him to just be calm about the water splashing him on their legs.
Yeah.
And there are a few that dive in and want to roll, which is fun.
Mm.
And if you have horseshoes, make sure you rinse the salt off because they will rust.
Oh yeah. Good advice. So David, where are you heading to now with your horses? What's the next stage in your career, in your adventure?
Well, I had this desire to perform, and I worked for a year to go on America's Got Talent.
Okay.
And I worked very hard every day, all day, on all aspects of the performance. And I got brilliant people to help me. And on the day of the show, the day before, they said, we're going to do the B-roll footage and also the background story. They usually play a little background story. So Pepino's because they'd seen it's a mini horse. His thing for the act was he wanted to meet Heidi Klum, and he wanted to give a kiss to Heidi Klum. This was
And you had Heidi Klum on the end of your phone that you could ask her to come and do this?
well, she was one of the judges.
Okay, got it.
So we set it up that he answers the phone. So I picked up the phone. Oh, it's Heidi Klum. She wants you to come, and he's all excited. And the whole big long 10-minute thing that I did. And so they set it up and they said day before he's going to be looking for Heidi here at the facility where they filmed the show. So they had him looking in trunks, lighting trunks and sticking his head in curtains. They put up a computer and it showed pictures of her kissing other animals so that he would be jealous, and he did everything perfectly. And then my friends from Big Horse Productions, Eric Martinovich, he helped me. And they were there, and I said, let's practice. They were holding a hoop. He jumped through a hoop with paper and broke through the paper. And I even practiced this in the parking lot. I had to go find something that he could land on and not slip. And everything was going so well. And then the next day, when I went to pick him up, he was not interested in taking any cookies.
Oh.
And I don't know what was wrong. I think later found that the people in the stall next to it had tossed a bunch of hay into his pen, and he must have gotten sick on the hay because unlike him, the last thing that would ever happen would be that he would refuse a cookie. He is massively food motivated. So
Okay.
I told the producers, I said, I can't do it. We did the rehearsal. I said, he's not doing anything. And they said, oh, bad rehearsal, good show. Blah, 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 blah. And I said, I'm not going to do it, but I will sit here and wait my turn. And so you wait, it's hurry up and wait in the movie and TV.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he started like asking for cookies, and he started to pick up his ball, and I thought maybe it'll work. And that was probably a mistake because he really did not. He was not interested. And
Okay.
it was quite. I had to buffoon it. I had to do the stuff for him and make a thing out of it. But it was quite embarrassing for me. I don't care about being embarrassed. I don't care about him not doing it. What I care about is nobody got to see how brilliant he actually is.
Right.
So that so much effort. If somebody asked me to do it again, I would say, I don't think I could put that much effort into it. It took so much effort. And so I sort of lost the desire to perform. And that leaves me, with kind of a hole, which is why I started, maybe why I started doing more music. And the music is taking that piece for me. So the horses are not actually doing that much at the moment, but the teaching, the students are getting better and better and better, and the students are carrying this stuff. So my horsemanship is coming alive, and my legacy, if there is one, is coming alive through the students. They're doing stuff that I can't do now.
Like what?
But just certain maneuvers and certain, I'm teaching them how to do off-center circles, where the horse does a circle on his own, but you're not in the middle.
Okay.
I can't do that.
Okay.
I mean, I know how to do it, but I don't have any horses that have done it, and I've never done it. I taught people how to do it. So
Interesting. Well, I think by teaching people how to do it, that is kind of doing it.
it is.
Yeah.
I just point to them and say, look how good they're doing this.
Yeah. So we haven't actually talked about your musical career at all. So just for viewers and listeners, David Lichman is also a pro jazz guitarist, as it happens, because why not? Why not add that to the list of things?
I play the bass guitar.
So if you're looking for a bassist,
No, don't call me. I'm too busy. So the music thing took a turn a couple of years ago for me. So I decided I wanted to play some more, and I started playing and doing different stuff. But this gal that we've just been talking about, Gabriela from Poland, I had no idea that she was a singer.
Okay.
And she has extreme talent in singing jazz. And we just started, fooling around with it at some point, and I said, "Oh my God, this is the missing piece for me." So I've had to step up in what I'm playing to be able to play for her what she
can sing.
And she doesn't like rehearsing. She does, when I'm struggling, so I'll play a piece like 10 times and she'll be going, God, that one again? I said, okay, you don't have to sing it. I just have to play it. You go in the other room or go play with us, go play with Pepino or something. But what we came up with was this idea about playing the bass and singing with no other instruments.
Ooh.
So this, it's as open and pure as you can get, puts tremendous pressure on me to outline the harmonies, because the bass player usually just plunking boom, boom, boom. I have to be able to outline the harmonies and play double stops and chords. And I'm growing in ways that I never thought I could even. And there are people who can do it way better than me, but I'm doing it.
That was Lemmy Kilminster, wasn't it, of Motorhead? He basically reinvented the bass guitar as a rhythm and lead guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's tons of people doing it way better than me now. There's tapping and there's all kinds of there's people doing it greater than me. But I have a purpose for doing it because I have to provide accompaniment for her.
Okay.
And it's really fun. So that's what we're doing. I'm doing that.
Do we get to hear your music? Where do we get to hear your music? How do we hear your music?
I'll send you a clip. You can put it on the.
Is it on YouTube? Like, could people YouTube find it?
I hope not. I'm embarrassed.
I'll tell you what. Then your music gets mine, because I've got a band. And yeah, all right. We'll.
I'll send you a clip, and you can include it in the podcast if you.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Love to meet Gabriela.
Maybe you will. I'm sure you will. We're coming to Europe actually, but I don't think I'm going to be there in end of June through August. But I don't think we're going to get to Spain. We're getting close. We're going to Avignon. We're going to go see Fred Pignon.
Okay.
but I don't
You're
think.
just going to go see him as a mate, or you're going to go see him as a
Yeah,
professionally?
well, I don't know what the difference is, but he invited
Well,
me.
are
So
you going to go do a gig together, or are you going
no,
to?
no, no, no.
All right, all right, all right.
We're gonna go. I
Yeah.
met him. I met him when he first started Cavalia here,
Okay.
and they were so nice to me. But I didn't think he even remembered because that's like 20 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And when we connected, they were so nice to me. It's come, we'll have lunch, we'll play with the horses, we'll spend the day. I mean,
Yeah.
super
They
nice.
are extremely
Super
nice.
nice.
Those two.
Yeah.
I need to get them on the
So
show.
I
So.
don't know if it's still there, but in Austin, so when Jennifer closed her facility in Moss Landing,
Mm,
or I think one of her sea lions had already gone to the zoo there. They were putting in a massive new exhibit, and I
mm,
think the other three went. So there's four of her sea lions from that are in the Houston Zoo, and
are they?
through a miracle, her top trainer got a job at the zoo. So those animals, her training is different anyway. If they had to go and endure somebody else's, weird training, it wouldn't have been great for them. But they have exactly the person that they know and the training that they know.
Serendipitous.
And when you go and when you're walking through the Houston terminal, I forget what the name of that terminal is.
Probably. But
It is. It
yeah.
is. You're right.
Yes.
There was this massive wall
Yeah.
advertising the zoo, and one of those sea lions is giving someone a kiss is on the wall in
Okay.
Houston. When you go in, if
Well,
you
we
happen to
actually
walk
do. We
by it,
go to. I go to Houston Zoo quite often, actually, with Rowan, because
if
zoos
they
are
still
his thing.
if
Yeah.
they still advertise it there, you'll see that.
Okay.
That's one of Jennifer's sea lions.
Well, in the years that have passed since you did that gig for us, which we were so grateful for, I don't know if you know much about how the organization has grown, but basically, there's now 3 programs. There's delivering this neuroscience, neuroplasticity thing, horseboy method, mounted with a kid, movement method, no horse at all, do it in the home, do it in a school, do it wherever, and then something called taquine, equine integration, all the in-hand work, all the classical in-hand work, as its own therapy for people with trauma, adult autists, and so on. And these all happened organically. But suffice to say, now we work in about 40 countries and we serve probably about 300,000 families. So, not me personally, but the people that we've trained to do what we do.
Yeah,
And in some cases, governments are getting on board and things. I have to ask you this: would you do another fundraiser for us at some point,
sure.
whatever it is?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't have the entertaining horse. I could bring you the mini horse.
I think that would be
Because I
fantastic.
think he could I was gonna go. I was gonna bring all the horses to the International Liberty Horse Association this fall, but
Well,
I backed myself off of it. I just decided it's not the right answer for me anymore, and I don't think it's fair to the horses to make them travel for three weeks.
well, two of our best campuses for our programs are actually in Northern California. Square Peg Foundation in Half Moon Bay, and then they have a second campus in Sonoma, and they do just sterling work. They're a registered mental health provider now for San Mateo County, but bootstrapped up from nothing. A woman called Joelle Dunlap.
I could do something down there.
Could we do something there for them?
Sure, sure, yeah.
There's a
They
beach. We could
are
do something on the beach.
maybe
Let's
they
hope
are.
your mini doesn't swim to Honolulu. That bit. Yeah.
I'm going to Sonoma in 2 weeks, actually. I have
Okay.
a woman that I know that I used to help her with her horses is living down there, and I'm just going to go visit with her.
That would be fantastic if you'd be willing. That would be because there's such an amazing because it's gone from us and our ranch to now us more training people and all these incredible facilities who do what we do, who are the real heroes. And
That's what I used to say. I mean, I said it at your place. I said, I'm not doing the hard work. You
yeah,
know, Rupert's doing the hard work. I'm just bringing awareness and raising a little money. But the day-to-day, the hard work is being done by somebody way more dedicated than me. So
yeah,
this is what I can do. So I'm doing it. But the idea is, I love it. I'm especially drawn to the work being done with veterans. We have 2 organizations that I raised money for. When I came back from that tour, I did a mustache challenge. I said, if I raise $10,000, I'll shave off this mustache.
okay.
and I raised $10,000 in the first day. Well, this is
sure,
no
a lot of
fun.
people rose to that occasion. Yeah.
Well, there was
Right,
one
David, it was
one
unfunny.
very generous donor, actually. She said, my husband just sold his antique car collection. He was looking for something to do with the money. He's a veteran, and he wants to put this. So all that money got raised on the first day. And I said, well, what are we going to do next? So the guy that runs one of the other organizations, he was a Vietnam vet, and he had a mustache, and he said, I've kept this mustache in honor of my buddy who was killed next to me in the helicopter, was shot and killed. And I've been wearing this mustache in commemoration of him. But if we get to 25,000, I'll shave mine too.
Okay.
So we got to 25,000, and we both shaved our mustaches. And I thought, oh, I'm liberated. I never have to wear this thing again. And then 3 days later, I said, I can't look at myself in the mirror.
Did you have to wear a merkin, like a little?
No, I did not. There's a word that not many people know, by the way.
Indeed. And it doesn't actually mean that, my friends, but you can go look it up. We won't tell you.
I know what it means.
Yes.
I don't know why.
I know you know what it means. Yeah.
I know what it means because my British friend told me that George W. Bush used to say he was proud to be American.
That's where I was going. Yeah. Every Brit that hears that, American, are you American? It's like, I don't know. Are you wearing one? Are you buying them off Amazon? I mean, what do they come in 24 packs? I mean, yeah.
Different colors. Different colors. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So the veterans, the work I've seen done with veterans is mind blowing. Absolutely.
Yes. Oh yeah. Without a doubt. We fell into it. We work with, so many people with different groups of trauma. Also, so we work with the Bundeswehr, the German army, the US Air Force, the Dutch Defense Force, and with a ex-Marine group in the UK. But I find that also one of the really unsung or underserved populations for this is, it's not just, so we don't just do veterans, we do active duty and their families, particularly the special forces guys, because they're not allowed to talk about what they did. So they have to come home and not talk. You can imagine that's a recipe for massive success in a family, right? So we run these camps in East Germany aimed at putting that back together. So we work with the kids, work with the service people themselves and all together. But it's also first responders. And our original ranch in Texas, we kind of moved the operation over to a friend's place, literally 2 minutes down the road. And they're still running with one of our original horses, actually still rolling there. And that happens to be run by a couple where he is a very senior fireman in the Austin Fire Department. And I didn't realize, he said, oh, they're firemen, yeah, they're all heroes, police, great, first responders, paramedics. But then you actually talk to them about what they do. And it's like, man, you are just scraping brains off the freeway every Saturday night and trying not to disappear down into a vodka bottle, Okay, we should be doing stuff here. And so that's a population I want to start really looking towards, because we absolutely rely on these people. We rely on our servicemen and women as well, but the first responders, man, I mean, if they're not there, when you need them, what are you going to do? So, yeah. And I know that Joelle in California there with Square Peg, she's starting to work in that. So maybe we'll look, maybe when we do something, we should look at this a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. The people in California, we raised that.
How much to shave your mustache this time? How much your mustache?
Yeah. This is, the only place. So there's a guy, probably the best bass player in the entire world. His name is Ron Carter.
Okay.
Plays upright bass. I don't play the upright bass.
Yeah.
But somebody asked him to play the opening line of So What, or something that he played on a record. And he said, no, I already did that. He won't do it again. He said, I already did that. I'm going to do something.
Yeah. Fair enough.
So the only place where
okay, this time I need you. We'll shave some other part of you. You knew that was coming. Then you may need the merkin.
Maybe it's already done.
No comeback. No comeback. Yeah.
In the music is the one place I can keep doing the same thing because I get so much joy out of that one thing, and I'm not good enough to say, okay, I did that. I need to do something. I need to do that one again because I get that feeling from that same thing that I've been practicing. So I'm lucky in that way that I don't always have to be striving for new. But the mustache challenge, probably not. Just I want to
a different type of mustache, maybe.
Yeah. Probably I would probably go again and try to take it off again all the way.
Maybe for 100K.
Maybe. It was a whole thing. I have a friend who
it's a real loss of identity though. My dad has always had a mustache. We always used to joke he looks like Saddam Hussein, and we used to joke we're looking for him.
All right, so we'll say goodbye. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much. Okay, so we go now. Make a pause so you can edit. So I got the call to take my miniature horse to do a show called Stupid Pet Tricks.
Okay.
It's based on the segment that Dave Letterman did for years. He'd bring a dog on and do some stupid pet trick, and then they would play it in slow motion. And so they hired. This is where it gets X-rated, by the way. they hired Sarah Silverman to host it. Sarah Silverman?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
okay. So we get on the phone with the producers, and I'm trying to figure out, what can we do to really make it funny, And my assistant is on the phone with me, and I said, I can train if you will, if you will stand up on 2 blocks. I'll say I'm gonna have Pepino go underneath your legs, but I'll train him to stop and look up your skirt, and then I'll ask him, you like what you see, and have him go, yes, right? Dead silence. The producer's dead silent, and Pepino gets on the phone. She says, you can't talk about this. I said, it's Sarah Silverman. No, they're trying to make it family friendly, and she's trying to turn a new leaf, and she's trying to give it a new image for herself, and you can't keep doing that. So I said, okay. So then you're talking for a while, and I said, I have another idea. I said, you put your purse on the ground, and I'll train him to reach in and pull out, a vibrator or a dildo or something, and bring it to you, right? And she said, you cannot do this. I'm being good behavior.
So she's flipped the red rag to the bull, so now you double down. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So we go for the thing. We're filming the pilot.
Oh, so they do go for it. They go for idea.
No, they didn't tell me what to do. He puts on basketball sneakers and he dunks a basketball. That's the main goal. And then he sits in a chair, so she's going to interview him. So we sit him in the chair and they do an interview, which was, from a training perspective, I was not prepared. I prepared for everything, but they didn't want me on camera. So I had to be behind the camera, cueing the horse to stay in the chair and yes and no. And that part of it was quite funny because he's sitting in the chair and I worked my way back and, like 6 feet away, or 2 meters away, and then 3 meters away. And they say, no, more. And I know he's going to get up. And he's not getting up. And she says to him, she says, wouldn't you rather be out running in the fields, playing with your friends, and sitting here on some TV show? And he gets up and walks off. It's been better, right? So anyway, so that's what I pitched. So I come on, and they said, you're going to come from behind the camera off stage. When she calls you, you're going to come out. And I said, okay. I said, can I ask him to walk, fancy walk in, just a Spanish walk in? Yeah. And they said, yeah, sure. So he comes in doing his Spanish walk, and she looks at me, and she goes, you taught him to goose step.
Yes.
I said, no, it's like ballet.
Yes, I, a Jew, taught my horse to goose step.
Right. And she, of course, the same. Turns out she grew up in the same town where my dad was born, where my grandfather went to work on a farm, up in New Hampshire.
How interesting.
Anyway, so I said, no, it's like ballet. It's jambette. It's, it's a beautiful thing. And okay. So we're she's interviewing me and talking to me, and they give me no instructions, and they say, why are you looking at me? You camera's over there. It's like giving me stage directions, trying to embarrass me, all this stuff. And so she says, okay, let's, why the miniature horse? Why the little horse? When the obvious point of attraction is right under your nose.
Okay.
And I said, well, it's kind of a signature thing, the circus ringmaster has curls, the big handlebar mustache. And she said, oh, that's interesting. She said, so if I wanted to ride your little horse, how much would that cost? I said, well, you're too big to ride him. I do have other horses to ride, but if someone was small enough, you could ride him for free. And she looked at me and she said, well, how much for a mustache ride? And all this stuff going through my head about
So
the
she set that whole thing up, block. Yeah.
Right.
That's the writer's mind right there. Yeah.
Right. I had it all prepared and I was told, no, squash it. So I said, well, the mustache rides are also free. And she goes, I always thought they're always free. And I thought that was a very bad business model. So it went downhill from there. I mean, she just kept going.
She's one of my heroes. Yeah.
Yeah. She just kept going at me. And she said, I'd say something. She said, I'm doing the jokes here. And then she turned and she'd say, working with you is like working with a professional comedy writer from 1983. So that's my dirty story. You can publish it or not, as you wish.
Well, just also the fact that you did it with Sarah Silverman. Hats off. I am not worthy. Yeah, right. Good.
I felt like, when I said the cucumber thing, she looked at me and she said, nice one. So I got a nice one. That's the rest of the time she mopped the floor with me.
Yeah.
We were putting on Pepino's shoes. They wanted to do it on camera, and it's really hard to do. And my friend Jay and I are down there trying to get these shoes on, and she's feeding the horse cookies, and she's saying all this stuff. She says, I wish I had a couple of nearly elderly gentlemen to put my shoes on for me. I said, thank you for the nearly. We're down there sweating bullets trying to get these little sneakers on the horse.
How long ago was that?
That was before America's Got Talent, before COVID.
Okay.
It was right at the beginning of COVID. It must have been 2020 because, oh my God, the COVID tests to go on set. They were sticking stuff up my nose every 10 minutes.
Yeah. It seems like another world now, another time.
Yes.
David, this has been brilliant. Look, we are at 2 hours, 10 minutes. We could go on and we could go on. So I think what we need to do is actually have a second round.
You can also make 2 out of this.
No, I like the long format. No, there's just more. There's just more to do. So I think what we should do is we should promise the lads and the lasses watching this, that listening to this, that we'll have David on again for if he's willing to, for more dirty stories with Sarah Silverman. I want another 10 of those.
I'll have to make those. I'll have to go find them.
You can. How will we know if they're true or not? To maybe go into some further detail on the training. What was standing out for me a lot in what you were saying is the great thing about doing a podcast. Obviously, it's just a brilliant excuse to talk to loads of interesting people whose work you like and admire, right? And so, as you were talking, and you're talking about your curiosity in all these different areas of life, which then you bring into the horses, whether it's different cultures or whether it's music or whether it's showmanship or whether it's history or whether it's certain philosophical concepts or so forth. As you know, if you read the great masters, the old masters, which I always encourage people to do, starting with Xenophon, there are actually masters before Xenophon, but we only have clay fragments from this man Kikuli in Nineveh in Babylon in 1350 or 75 BC. He's keeping the stable for the Hittite kings, but we've got a bit of his book. But Xenophon, we know, is the one who is the progenitor of the European Western horsemanship / dressage tradition, and he, of course, is a philosopher. People in the horse world go, "Oh yeah, Xenophon, he was this horse guy." It's like, well, actually, he was a student of Socrates and I don't know if he was best mates, but he was classmates with Plato. And he was also a soldier. They were all soldiers, actually, including Socrates. They had to be in those Greek cities. And he's also taught as the master of the tactical withdrawal. So if you go to West Point Academy or Sandhurst Academy, training to be an officer, they will teach you Xenophon as military technology for how to get your army out of trouble intact while delivering, as much damage as possible to the guys pursuing you. So he talks about what this type of multi-dimensional horse training requires of a human is emotional control of your emotions. And therefore it's very, very good for hot-blooded, young, entitled, aristocratic men to do, because it helps them to keep their shit together. And then, of course, we see this theme again and again. It comes up in the Renaissance with the academies down in Naples, and people like Pignatelli and Pluvinel going back to the French king and saying, you know what, our aristocracy are out of control. All they do is fight duels with each other and civil wars, and they don't pay their taxes, and we'll never rival Spain, until we get control of our economy, which is in the hands of these idiots. I propose 4 riding academies for the youth of these guys to teach them emotional control. And the king goes for it, which is why we have all the French names in dressage and why we even call it dressage and so on and so on. And this comes all the way down this kind of philosophical, basically the horses and the humanities together. And I think I wasn't expecting this as part of the conversation, but you've really brought all of that together, but in such a human way. And I love that you can go from basically, compassion to mustache rides with Sarah Silverman, to jazz bass, to liberty training on the beach, to exploring how we can perhaps be better to each other as well as
Yeah, I think the one thing that the horses they will ensure that you have some humility. If you don't have humility, you're not gonna succeed.
Well, they're certainly going to hand it to you.
Yes. Yeah.
Regardless.
Yeah. So the people who are too arrogant they're gonna fall down at some point.
Yeah. For sure.
But just for clarity, Sarah Silverman did not accept this mustache ride for free.
Yet, I think you should add "yet" to the
Yet.
We're allowed to be optimistic. I think the horses also teach us to be optimistic, do they not?
Yes. Also, you're talking about the history of Xenophon and all those.
Yeah.
I didn't mention that Gabriella has a degree in classical philology, which is something I didn't even know existed.
Okay.
But she had to learn ancient Greek and ancient Latin to complete her 4 years of studying.
What is philology?
Yeah, it's that classical history of like ancient Greece and Rome.
Well, it's more than just the history, though. Wouldn't that just be history? What's philology?
Yeah, I don't.
Is it like a bloke called Phil?
Phil? No, I think it's philos, meaning love of.
Love of. Right. Ancient history. She and I would definitely get along. I did my degree.
We can look it up.
Medical history.
I'm going to look up what is philology.
It makes you think of this bloke down the pub called Phil, who you got to know all about him, and there's like a pub quiz, and you get tested on your philology.
The study of language in historical, oral, and written sources, combining literary criticism, history, and linguistics to analyze the development, structure, and authenticity of text, often described as the love of words.
Okay.
Philology. We focus on interpreting ancient or literary texts with their cultural context with strong ties to etymology. Key examples. Okay.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I think we need her on the show. Maybe you should both come on with Sarah Silverman.
Next time, yeah.
Right.
You get me up with Sarah Silverman, I'll buy you 2 beers.
If I could do that miraculously, you would shave off 2 mustaches, or regrow where it's already shaved. Yeah.
I will. Yes.
All right.
The whole key about animal training is motivation. See, now you've uncovered a motivator, and now you want to exploit it.
Indeed, I am the good place.
You learn well, my son.
David does not leave the room. Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, thank you so much. It's been brilliant. Would you come on again?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll try to hook up with you in Sonoma, and we'll see where I am. I have like 3 days unaccounted for before I go to Vienna. So maybe I'll be speeding by.
Or maybe I can come to, one of your gigs. Let's see what we can do.
Those are fun.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I'll send you that. I'll send you a video of some music. I'll send you a video of my horse playing music.
Yes, please. Maybe we can include that in the intros and the outros.
Yeah, I will. I'll send it all to you after we hang up. Thank you so much. It really has been as much fun as I thought it would be, because I remember the last time we were together. It was fun.
Yeah. Okay, till the next time.
Ciao.
Have a great rest of the day, my friend. All right. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. If you did, please help us to make more. Please like, subscribe, tell a friend, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, please go to my website, rupertisaacson.com. And if you'd like to find out about our certification courses with autism, education, horsemanship, everyday shamanism, there's a whole range of cool stuff. Putting a show together like this is not an easy task. If you'd like to support us, please consider going to our Patreon page and showing us some love there. Even the smallest donation, it really helps us to keep the good content coming. So go to rupertisaacson.com and click on the Patreon link. Not to mention our excellent merch. Please go to our shop and check out some of our really cool rock and roll themed merch, t-shirts, hoodies, all that sort of thing. rupertisaacson.com, it's all there. I can't wait for our next guest and also to meet you there. In the meantime, remember, live free, ride free.